Well, we have attendees joining us. Welcome everyone for joining us this evening. It's exciting to have to do our second speaker our second talk of our speaker series. And this one is open to more of the community. So I thought I would just introduce myself. My name is Denise Woltering Vargas, and I work at Tulane University in the Stone Center for Latin American Studies. And in the evening, I teach education in a diverse society. So I'm excited to see some of my students are joining us. And all of our students in the EDLA 2000 are welcome to join us. So I'm excited to hear from them. And welcome the others. So what I'd like to do is just let you all know that we have a Q&A area. You can ask your questions there, and I will give you the opportunity to unmute yourself and ask them to the group so that we can hear your voice if you'd like to expand on the question. There's also a chat box. So if you have any issues or additional questions come up, you can use that chat box there. So what we'll do is basically just I'll introduce and explain to you all that this is this series was created out of the need to kind of share a more diverse perspective on the state of education. Right now, we started this last fall, and hearing from community members, teachers, administrators, and others has been really interesting and inspiring, and I think has really helped to inform the topics that we cover in the course. I myself am a parent, so I know that it's also equally interesting to hear about what's going on in schools and to hear how we're working together and, you know, getting through this specific unique moment, but also just learning about the teacher prep and certification program. So this evening's session is called From the Field, a discussion from local charter school educators. And it really is a great moment. I was excited to that Professor Brooke Grant suggested we invite Michelle Williamson, who is a kindergarten teacher at Lusher Elementary and a teacher prep and certification program alum, Sophie Garrard, who teaches kindergarten at Lake Forest Elementary. So this will be a really interesting evening to learn about how you guys met and the experiences you've had. I thought maybe I'll hand it over to you, Michelle. If you guys could both introduce yourself, what you do, and where you work, that would be great.
Okay. My name is Michelle Williamson. I am a kindergarten teacher at Lusher, born and raised here in New Orleans. I love being a part of this city and the culture and the history that New Orleans brings. I'm a product of public school education in Jefferson Parish, went through public school from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, and graduated from University of New Orleans with my bachelor's in early childhood education. This year has been exciting, my 15th year of teaching during a pandemic, and it has brought a lot of exciting days and some new challenges along the way. I also taught my first few years in Jefferson Parish and St. Tammany, and have been a part of Lusher family for the last 9 years.
Great, Sophie.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Garrard. I am a kindergarten teacher at Lake Forest Charter. This is my first year teaching. I went to Tulane. I graduated in 2019, and then I spent a year student teaching at Lusher with kindergarten, where Michelle was my mentor teacher. So that is how we originally met.
Great, thanks guys. I think it would also be nice to know where our attendees are coming from. If you could drop in the chat box your name and maybe whether you are a student or teacher or parent, or you could put other, but it would be great to learn a little bit about who we have joining us this evening. So you could just drop that in the chat box. In the meantime, I thought I would start with you, Sophie. Could you share with us your experience at Tulane and in the TPCP program?
Yes, definitely. So I was in the TPCP program. I majored in psychology and early childhood education. I took all the certification classes at night, and I did my psychology classes and other classes during the day. I really enjoyed the program. It ended with a student teaching residency, which was a full year, which I was super thankful to have done. I thought it was really helpful because the major was psychology and early childhood education. I thought it was really helpful taking psychology classes and sociology classes and a lot of things that I think have really helped me as a teacher. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Michelle, what was it like working with Sophie? What were the benefits? What worked? What really helped in your classroom?
Well, when I think back to my year with Sophie, I can't say enough great things about her. It was truly a blessing. I didn't know that Sophie was going to join me until right before school started. We were already back in the classrooms on our first or second day of PD. I was prepping, getting everything ready, and my principal came and said, "Will you take another student teacher?" And of course, I didn't even hear anything about her. I said, yes. I love mentoring. I love giving, sharing with new teachers. I said yes right away. And Sophie arrived in my room the next day, and it was a success from day one. One of the things that Sophie was able to contribute to the classroom, I noticed right away her professionalism. I mean, she greeted all of the teachers in a professional manner. She was wonderful with the parents and with the kids. I never had to worry, about how she was going to speak to one of the parents or engage with the kids. It's so nice to have, obviously, another set of eyes and hands in the classroom, but knowing that she can handle herself appropriately in situations, and I didn't have to watch every little thing that she did. That's a gift in itself for a teacher. She was extremely dependable and reliable. I mean, Sophie was here every day before I got here. I'm running around dropping my own kids off, and I knew, so she was never late. And if there was ever an emergency, she texted or she called early in the morning, which I think maybe once or twice, if that ever happened. So to know that she was there every day, she was there on time, that was a huge gift and blessing to the classroom. Her technology abilities, I learned a ton from her. She was giving and helpful with all of the knowledge that she had to share. So I learned a lot from her. The kindergarten team learned a lot. That was helpful. Sophie also was very humble. She didn't come in and say, "I'm fresh out of school and I know everything." She did know a lot, but she also learned a lot and would sit back and watch. And that allowed for a lot of trust to build with me. I don't know if I ever said thank you for that, Sophie, but that was a huge gift for taking it slow.
I appreciate that. And I want to add, like you said, I learned more than I could have ever imagined in my year of student teaching through the TPCP program. Like I don't think I could have gotten the job that I have now without that year of experience and without everything I learned. And I feel so much more equipped for so many things ahead and like what's going on right now because I had that year. It was really great.
And can you so when was your year of residency? Was this?
This was the last year. So I graduated in 2019 and then I did my residency year from 2019 to 2020.
Wow. Yeah, this is a real moment of transition. Many of our students are learning what service learning looks like virtually, right? So all of our students that have service learning requirements are having to, everyone's just been kind of pivoting into this. Okay, how can we help safely online? And so many of our students are working in a virtual tutoring scenario at Baby Ben Franklin Elementary. And it's really interesting to learn. And I was really proud of my students last semester at how kind of flexible and observant they were about how to help their teachers. So it is really interesting to hear. I think especially as students are just kind of put into this classroom to help a teacher who's already got so many students virtually or in front of them, and how those students can really help without being a burden, right? Not having to kind of worry about the two-lane student getting something important out of it. Do you have any lessons or tips for students that are in this kind of scenario where they want to help a teacher who may not be ready for them, right? So they've logged in and the teacher is really doesn't have time to really help the student because they are Orleans Parish just moved back to in-person, this kind of transition. Do you have any tips, either of you?
Well, I would say always have your toolbox full of a couple of strategies and activities that you can use in the moment. So if the tutor is logged in and the teacher's not ready, but yet you're sitting there with the child, every little one loves a book, a story. Have a book ready to go. Have some questions ready to go, more than just yes, no responses. Tell me about your day. Tell me about a time that you went to the park. Tell me, engage in a conversation. You don't even have to teach an academic skill. A lot of little ones just want to have a relationship and just a bonding experience. If their frontal lobes are activated and they feel connected and they feel in the moment, this person is listening to me and wants to be with me, they're way more inclined to grasp the academics that you're asking them to perform or the skills that you're trying to teach them in a quick 10-minute lesson.
Yeah, and going off that, I really struggled with this when I was doing any of my field experience. Like I was always very shy. Like I wasn't sure what I could do or what I should do. And I didn't know like if I should ask or if I should just wait to be told what to do. And I would say something I learned throughout my experience is always ask, like when you walk in or if you log on to the call, just if you don't get any sort of instructions, just say, what can I do right now? And if you don't get further instructions, then like Michelle said, have something ready, talk to the child that you're with, or if you're in a classroom setting, walk around, see if kids need help. But I think asking how you can be helpful is always a good idea because I always struggled with, I didn't want to like step on a teacher's toes. I didn't want to do anything without them telling me first, but then they don't always have the time to give you very specific instructions because they're very busy. So if you let them know, can you overview of what I should be doing right now, just to get a little bit of guidance.
Yes, exactly. Communication is definitely key. That's great. I mean, so Sophie, you were in your first year. How has that been?
Well, it's been certainly a very interesting year. I mean, it's been back and forth, virtual, in person, virtual, in person, both at the same time. So, I've been having to navigate my first year of teaching and learning about a school that I didn't really know anything about before I was there, and also learning about how to teach during COVID. And I'm really lucky that last year we had a few months of this, and luckily we were using Google Classroom, which is what we are using over at Lake Forest. So I understood how to use Google Classroom, how to have students on Google Meet, how to, do assignments and activities using Google Slides. All of those different things that we used at Lusher were very useful to me at Lake Forest. But yeah, it's definitely been a crazy year, but I do feel that this being my first year of teaching and really having to go through all of these challenges will make all of my following years feel a lot better and a lot easier. I would say the biggest struggle that I have as a first year teacher, especially with the way that schools are working right now, is classroom management. I'm the only teacher in my classroom, and I have 4 students who are virtual, and I have 15 students in the classroom. And every school, all the schools in Orleans Parish obviously are doing like the partly virtual, part in person, but it's kind of to the school's discretion how that looks in every classroom. And so for me, I'm teaching live all day to my 4 kids at home and my 15 kids in the classroom. So being able to make sure I'm giving attention to those kids and managing the behavior that's going on in the classroom has definitely been my biggest challenge as a first year teacher. But it's learning as I go. Yeah.
And that age seems like it must be really tough too. I mean, you really have to be engaged to get them virtually. I can't imagine that. I have a 4-year-old and you have to really, connect. How does that work when you're virtual?
Well, Luckily, since we had that month of virtual learning at the beginning of the year, they really got into that routine, and we were teaching all day live pretty much even during that time. So they, during the beginning of the year, so they understand how the online stuff works. But keeping them engaged can be tough. You know, I notice sometimes that my kids at home will be like kind of looking to the side or putting their head down or being bored, because a lot of my time is spent managing the children in the classroom. So sometimes those kids at home have to sit and wait. So to keep them engaged, I mean, we do a ton of movements like on Go Noodle and things I find on YouTube. We play games, Simon Says, learning games. So I'll try to turn whatever we're working on into some sort of game where they can get up and move. Because those kids at home, I mean, I don't know what they do on their breaks. For all I know, they could be sitting on the couch watching TV during their breaks. Whereas the students in the classroom, I'm making sure they're up and moving, and like they are playing with little toys at their desk or something. But those kids at home, I don't know how much engagement and play they're getting during the day. So I try to incorporate it into the day as much as I can.
Wow. Michelle, what about you? How are you connecting with kids right now?
Our virtual day is totally different from Sophie's. Lusher, we don't live teach in kindergarten all day. So right now, this is the first time I don't have a virtual kid. I have one virtual student who's just in a temporary quarantine. So he actually comes back on Tuesday. But when we do have virtual students, it's not like that at all. They log in for 30 minutes in the morning for community circle, and that's like the social emotional component, how we start the day. And after 20 minutes, they log out. And if we have an exploratory at that time, they'll log in for that with the artist. And then I don't see them again until our one-on-one session at a designated time during the day. So it's either during my planning period or at a time where I can step away. I do have a full-time assistant, so that's a gift in itself, and I can coordinate with her of when I can go in my office, which is the closet, and I call it my office this year, and I'll meet with the student one-on-one in the closet and do my lesson sitting on the floor in there. So it's a little bit different. We have more asynchronous activities where the kids, we have a calendar and they click on the links and everything has hyperlinks to it, and they're able to do the work that's the same as what the kids are doing in the classroom, but it's not as much screen time with direct teaching. So a lot of engagement, and I see the kids every day, but just, it looks like Sophie said, each school presents it in a different way.
Right. Wow. So you've been teaching for a while now, Michelle, what do you think has changed in teaching? I mean, this is certainly a major thing, but in general, how do you think your teaching has evolved?
I would say the demands. I mean, to be honest, Denise, the demands are intense for an educator. You know, if you're looking for a job that you can walk in at 8 a.m. and leave at 3:30 with no homework and no extra on the evenings, then really education is not for you then. You know, to be very honest, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work. I have a family too. I take work home every night. I have work on the weekends. It does require a lot. I love it though. I feel this is what I'm wired for. This is what I'm made for. Am I exhausted every single day? Yes, every day. Do I take Tylenol? Do I have headaches every day? Probably, from the constant stress, and this year's just intense. But I guess that's the biggest. I have seen that the workload has intensified over the years because the expectations, either from the city or the state or the federal government, has increased over my 15 years.
Right. Yeah. And I know, you know, we teach this in this Education and Diverse Society course. Lusher has been recognized for its social emotional kind of strategies. How has that changed? What sort of things are happening right now to help kids connect and feel? I mean, have you noticed any sort of you know, a change in behavior, or, you know, has this kind of weird transition year have you seen any sort of issues in children this year that?
You know, the great thing is, and that's one of the things that I try to do this year, because it is so stressful and it is so taxing on us. I look for the little moments of joy. I need it in order to get through each day. And there's so much laughter and joy with the kids still. That's what I'm constantly amazed at. I can be so overwhelmed. I just got an email at 7 a.m. A child's going to quarantine. I'm frantically trying to figure out how I'm going to coordinate that. And then I look over and I see my kids all masked up, you know, playing with magnet tiles. And they're so happy and they're laughing and they're building this house and they've got this story and they're totally engaged with it and they're happy. And when I see that, it brings me back down to reality of, yes, we're in a pandemic. Yes, I've got virtual kids and online kids and Google Classroom and all of these components that I never had to deal with before. But one thing that stays the same is kids are kids and they just want to play, especially at this age. They want to have connection with their teacher. They want to have relationships with their peers. So to go back to the social and emotional part, it is necessary. I remember years ago when the whole social emotional, excitement first started coming. I remember thinking, I don't have time for it. I really don't. There's too much that I have to teach. And I really resisted it, 6-7 years ago. And over the time, I realized because the workload has intensified over the years, I need social and emotional well-being strategies, or I'm not going to get through it. And what I noticed was as I was teaching these strategies to the kids, I had these aha moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to start breathing like this, or I need to start like actually enjoying the fresh air at recess and getting my second win, because I'm not going to make it if I don't. So once I realized how powerful and impactful the mental well-being and the social and emotional strategies were to the kids, and I took ownership over it, the full connection was made, and I was hooked, and I'll never turn back and leave it, because there's no way you can make it without it.
Right. In this past summer, was there more work for you all to kind of prepare for this year? Did you guys start earlier? I'm just curious what that looked like. I mean, it seems like no one really knew what was happening going into the fall. We were kind of holding our breath a little bit and until the superintendent kind of started making decisions. But what were your two schools doing to help prepare you all? I mean, what happens normally? And then was there any extra professional development or things to be thinking about?
Sophie, you want to answer first?
Yeah, I can go. Since it was my first year at the school, I'm not 100% sure what a normal summer leading up to the school year looks like, but we had an entire PD series devoted to teaching virtually. So we had, I think throughout the entire summer, we would have like every other week, or even maybe every week, we would have 1 hour-long call, and each call was about some different feature that we would be using. So there was it started out really basic, just on how to use Google Apps, how to use Gmail, and how to set up your Google Classroom. And then we went more advanced. And then this PD series is continuing throughout the entire year. So every couple of weeks we have another one where we can just ask questions or give ideas, share ideas with each other, and learn from each other. And so that's been really helpful. I thought I was really familiar with Google Apps and all the things that we'd be using, and I still have learned a lot from that PD series for sure.
So at Lusher, we didn't have a long PD the way Sophie was describing with that. They really gave us time to rest and rejuvenate after what we went through in the spring, and just kind of get ready, buckle down and get ready for what was coming in the fall. They gave us a lot of time to work with our teams and to plan accordingly to meet the needs of our kids. What works in 2nd and 3rd grade doesn't always work in kindergarten and first. So we had a lot of time to work with our teams and figure out what we wanted it to look like and how we wanted to meet the needs of our learners and still comply with city and state regulations as far as the minutes of how many minutes you've got to meet with your kids. And then what they have done, which has been a huge blessing, is we have a tech guy that's on campus half of the day, every single day. So we are able to have him come into our team meetings. We can text him and say, hey, I'm having an emergency. Can you come down right now? I mean, to have a tech expert on hand, I mean, he's also my best friend this year. He never knew he was going to be my best friend, but him and I are close now, and that's been very helpful. And having a lot of time just to work with your teams, because like I said, what works for third grade doesn't always work. Kindergarten is just, early childhood in general is just a beast of its own. And it just to have time to work with your team has been really helpful.
So do you all have, I'm just curious, is Mardi Gras break something? I mean, do you guys still have a week off, or what sort of do you guys have?
Yeah, we originally had a week off, and then because of all the missed hurricane days, we are making up some of those days during Mardi Gras break. So I think now we only have 2 days off. So those, because I believe it was like an entire week that was missed from the various hurricanes. So we lost a little bit of Mardi Gras break and a day or 2 days of Thanksgiving break as well.
Our Mardi Gras will stay the same for a week. And then if they make any adjustments to the calendar, they'll let us know. An announcement hasn't been made yet.
Well, hopefully you guys will get a downtime. I feel like I'm in need of, tonight would be one of our parades, right? So I kind of feel like, so there are house floats, but it'd be nice to have, for you all to have a break, for us to kind of just take a moment to reflect a little bit. Well, I thought do you guys have any questions before I open it up? Because it seems like a good time to open it up to our students, but did you all have anything that you wanted to bring up or share with our group?
No, I'd love to hear any questions and have a time to answer and share.
Great. Okay. So if you all would like to pose a question in the Q&A box or in the chat, that would be great. And we can call on you to ask that. I know this is, so Lake Forest is in Orleans Parish, correct, Sophie?
Yes.
Okay. And you knew nothing about the school before?
I didn't know much. I mean, when I was, well, it's in the East, but it's part of the Orleans Parish schools. And when I was looking for jobs, Michelle and I went over like all the openings that I had found, and she was like, you should look at this school, this school, this school. And Lake Forest was one of the schools that she thought would be a good fit for me. And then I interviewed there, and that is how it went. And I had heard of the school, but I didn't know too much about it. So I, did my research. And
it will be really interesting when you are in more of a normal year, right? I mean, if you've been mostly teaching online or in this hybrid situation, you'll probably.
Yes, it's definitely, I feel there's things I'm learning every day. Like today I didn't realize that it was like a universal thing at the school that every kid in the classes, they all had like numbers. And that's how like, you just say line up by number and everybody lines up. I didn't know that. I was lining my kids up in the order that I picked for them, like just with their names for the whole year. And then today, a teacher came in and was like, all right, everybody line up. Number 1, come line up. And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, they don't have numbers? I was like, no, I didn't know about that. And it's something that I'm sure I would have known about in a regular year, but there's so much else to learn about just how to teach right now that I'm definitely missing some knowledge about the school in like a normal year.
Right. Yeah. The school culture really too. Mm-hmm. Well, we have a question here from Bo about your experience with Tulane and maybe even what made you consider education. Bo, would you like to ask your question?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking it. What was your experience like with the teacher education program at Tulane University? I'm considering possible education as a second career.
Yeah, I really had a great experience. I mean, I was doing the program while I was an undergrad, so it's a little bit different than it would be if you're looking at education as a second career. I mean, all of the certification classes are 5 p.m. and later, so that was really nice. You know, you can work during the day or do whatever you need to do during the day and have your classes at night. I had a really positive experience. I mean, you get to have field experience in a lot of different schools. And I know Denise was saying that it's kind of been changing. Y'all are trying to do different schools than has been done in the past, which is great. Being able to see different classrooms. And I felt like it was a very positive experience, and I didn't feel like the workload was too much. Like I always felt that it was under control and something that could be done. Like a lot of people in the class had or were full-time teachers already or had another job, and they were taking the classes at night, and it wasn't overwhelming. And I would definitely recommend it.
So kind of a off the cuff question, was it worth the money?
Well,
because I was looking at I'm looking at tuition and I'm like, huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, let me rephrase that question. Was the return on investment there?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
okay.
I'm not sure, because since I was an undergrad, it's a little bit different. I'm not sure about the exact.
Let me think. I'm looking at getting my master's in education.
Oh, okay.
M.ed, so everything's like double. So you're looking about $3,600 for a class.
Yeah, so I didn't get my master's or anything. I just got my bachelor's and my certification.
I'm coming from the military, so that's why I'm kind of asking. So it's one of those things, you know, you get out of high school, you join the military, and then by the time you're in your mid-30s, you're done. And it's like, okay, I'm 38, 39. You know, I've got 20 years. You know, that whole deal is like I've been training and doing stuff in the military my whole life. I just want to kind of see what, you know, I'm just exploring my options.
Yeah. And Bo, you know, it seems like you got on to this call. Have you been connecting with SOPA? Because there are a lot of really great programs, and I know they do.
I have. I'm kind of I'm exploring either like public administration or education. I'm really looking at a lot of different things, and I've heard nothing but good about Tulane, and I don't want to take too much of your guys' time today. But it's just something I was always doing stuff, training, doing teaching and type of stuff, and with the military community. So and I can't make kindergartners do push-ups, but someone might get upset with that. But we were doing the same thing with like terminal learning objectives, very, very similar to, and I know it's totally different. I got to retrain, but I just want to know how was your experience and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the overall answer to that question is I had a very positive experience and I enjoyed it. And I feel like it really equipped me for teaching. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Of course.
Thanks, Bo.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know, Michelle, you said you went straight in, you knew right away education was what you wanted to do at UNO, right? Or did you have other?
Well, I always loved kids. I mean, even when I was little, I mean, I started babysitting when I was young, and I grew up with educators. My mom taught for 37 years. My grandmother was a principal and educator in Jefferson Parish. So I grew up in that setting. It was very comfortable. You know, we would go to school in the summer and paint my mom's classroom. And I remember her grading papers on the weekends. It just kind of was part of my childhood. And my mom actually said, I remember when I went to school for my freshman year, she's like, well, maybe you should explore other options, you know. And I did. I didn't go into education my freshman year. I went into business, and I tried really hard and did awful at it. I didn't like it. And I had several professors even say, like, you're not good at this, you know. And I really wasn't good at it, and I didn't like it. And what I liked and what I loved was being with kids, and I was good at it. You know, when you know what you're good at, you have fun with it, and you have to really like teaching. If you don't like it, it's miserable and it's a lot of work, and you have kids all around you, and you've got your administration to answer to, and you have parents, it's a lot of people that you're dealing with. If you don't like it, you shouldn't do it. You know? Once I made that decision, I'm going to go into education. I finished in 3.5 years, did my student teaching in kindergarten in Jefferson Parish, and never looked back. I mean, there's, even on the worst days, on the days I walk out and I'm like, I'm exhausted, I could sleep for a week straight. On the worst days, I still know in my heart, this is what I love. It is hard, but it's what I'm wired for, and it's truly what I love to do.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's rewarding. I mean, you're not going to do all of that work if it doesn't give you something in return. So that's right. And then Gina asks, actually, what made you decide to teach kindergarten? So Gina, do you want to expand on that question, or? We can just have Michelle. Why did you decide to do kindergarten?
I've always loved the little ones. And so I requested kindergarten for my student teaching year and actually got it and loved it. You know, I had a wonderful mentor teacher. I think that's one of the reasons why I like to be a mentor, because I still remember Karen was so good to me and I learned so much from her. I want to give to others what she gave to me. And I had fun. It was fun to be with the little ones and laugh with them and play with them and still teach them some rigorous academics. We don't just sit around eating snack and playing with blocks all day. We do that, but we're doing tons of teaching and tons of hard work. So I love kindergarten because everything is amazing to them. You can teach them about the letter S and they think it's the best thing ever. You can teach them about the worms in the soil and they think that's the best thing ever. You can sit with them and say, this whole day, we're just going to look at books, and they think it's the best day ever. It is such a gift. You know, there's so many issues outside, you know, the world and politics and just the busyness of life. But when I come into my classroom and I'm with these 5- and 6-year-olds, it's a total escape from the outside stressors, because when you're with those kids, they need you every single second. And there's so many of them. So it's kind of selfish, I guess, because I don't have to think about the other things. When I'm with my kids, it's my little bubble and my little world. And I give to them, but you know what? They give back to me every single day and they don't even realize it. Sophie?
Well, we laugh because when I got assigned kindergarten for student teaching, I didn't want kindergarten. I was like, I want 2nd grade. Like maybe I'll settle for 1st grade, but like I would rather 2nd, or I just thought that anything under 2nd grade was like too young for me. So when I found out that I was with kindergarten, I was really nervous, and I had, in all of my field experience at Tulane, kindergarten was the only grade I had never worked with before in like my certification area. I had been with pre-K 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but I had never been with kindergarten. So I really did not know what I was getting myself into. And then really my year as student teaching opened my eyes to how much I loved kindergarten, and I can't imagine teaching another grade. I mean, they come in all like with very different levels of knowledge and experience, but then like just watching them, they're like little sponges and they're beginning to learn how to read, and like Michelle said, they love everything. Like everything that you do excites them, and they're so loving and kind to each other, and I just really enjoy it. And I think it's a really interesting developmental age. Just seeing how much they grow in that 1 year is crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Gina says here in the chat, you guys are literally shaping the future for our children. So for that, I thank you. It takes a special kind of person to do what you do. Yes, you guys are definitely, I wish there was, yeah. The frontline workers, I feel like you guys are it as well. I feel that all the time. It looks like if there are any other questions, you can ask them in the Q&A. We do have one there. The question is, are you from New Orleans? What motivated you to teach in this city specifically? So I guess that would go to Sophie, because Michelle, you are from here, right?
Yeah.
So I am from Baton Rouge originally, so not far. And I grew up coming to New Orleans all the time. Me and my best friend growing up, she had a ton of family here and I had family here. And so we trade off like weekends coming to New Orleans with our families. So I'm not from here, but I definitely feel like I spent a lot of my growing up here. And so I wanted to go to college in New Orleans because I loved it so much. And then being at Tulane and experiencing schools here and just really having a really great experience here, I just wanted to stay.
It is definitely an interesting place to be teaching, bringing in the culture of New Orleans as well into your teaching. It's got to be really fun. I don't have any other questions. Are there any other questions from the audience? And are there things, Michelle or Sophie, that you think are, I thought maybe there might be parents on here. I'm not sure, maybe there are, but what would you two recommend? How can parents support their kids at home in this online scenario?
You want me to go first, Sophie?
Sure.
Okay. I have a couple of ideas. So what I've noticed is super helpful is to have a designated space for your child. I mean, set up a workspace at home for them. So if they're going to be at home, make it, set up their desk. And this is where you go to work every single day. Here's your desk, here's your chair, here's your laptop, here's your water bottle. But when you are at school on the computer, even though we're at home and your bed's just a couple of feet away, you still need to participate and engage on the computer the same way you would in the classroom if you're sitting on the carpet. And so that comes and goes, depending on how long you're in virtual learning. Mm-hmm. That's a huge factor. Another factor is what was helpful too is kids who were in pods. So if it was just a Tulane, tutor with them, or even a private tutor, I would invite the parent, and the parent was at work, so it's just the child and the tutor. I would invite the parent and the tutor to have a Zoom session with me for 10 minutes. Introduce myself to the tutor, make sure the tutor was familiar with the schedule and knew how to access Google Classroom, knew what time the child's one-on-one sessions were or the small group sessions. Because ultimately, if your child is really, I would say, minimum second grade or below, the parent, the adult that's with the child is really responsible for navigating and making sure. I mean, the kids are still little. So if I want my 5 and 6-year-olds on the computer at 8 o'clock in the morning, I really need to make sure my parents know how to navigate the platforms and know what I'm expecting, because I'm dependent on them to instill in the child that they're with physically what I want them to do and connect with me on the computer. So building that relationship with your child's teacher, inviting the pod teachers and the tutors on a Zoom and connecting with them just for 10 minutes is very helpful.
I will add, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth about keeping the space organized and like having a space to work. The most helpful thing for me has been when parents help their children have like their own space. They know where everything is. I gave them like a list. I was like, you need to put this in this folder and this in this folder. These are the things you need to have out in front of you. These are the things you need to have to the side. And the parents who really went through with that and followed all of my very detailed instructions, that was super, super helpful. So I can say, you need this book and you need to turn it to this page, and a child can know where it is and get it out and not have to run around their house or anything like that. And then one thing that is really helpful for me, at least with being live all day, and the kids they're pretty independent with getting onto the call, and we kind of just leave the call going all day and they can just turn their cameras off, and I set a timer when they need to come back. So they're pretty independent with that. So I really appreciate it when parents give them space to do things by themselves. I mean, I had students who, after a month of virtual learning, I thought that they were on one level based on the work that they were turning in. And then I'm seeing as they're coming into the classroom, mom or dad or grandma was doing the work for them, or, really, really walking them through everything, or standing behind the computer during an assessment and saying like, you know, so giving them space to actually show what they know is super helpful. And, you know, not like spelling the words for them or
helping them to be independent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the last thing is at the beginning, I asked parents, I sent out a survey and I just had them rate like their knowledge of Google Classroom and Google Apps on like 1 to 5. And the parents who were honest and who were just like, I have never even heard of Google Classroom, I don't know how to do anything. That was super helpful for me because I knew which students, if work wasn't getting turned in, it was probably because whoever's at home just didn't know how to turn it in. And so I could email them and say, hey, let's set up a quick call. This is how you click turn in on an assignment, or this is how you submit a photo. So that was really helpful.
So that brings up a question I've had, because it seems as though most schools are doing different things. What is Lake Forest doing for tech? I mean, did the school send out a survey to find out what sort of Wi-Fi is available or what devices? How does that work?
So all of the students have Chromebooks at home, and that's the only device that they are allowed to use for their schoolwork. So they can't like get on an iPad or anything like that unless the Chromebook is broken and they're waiting for it to get fixed. So they do all of their schoolwork and all of their school day on the Chromebook, and then they had hotspots available for students who did not have access to Wi-Fi, but that was only on like a basis of we really have zero access to Wi-Fi. I had some students parents who were asking, could we get those hotspots? And I was like, no, like if you can log on to the call, like that's not for you. So, but they made sure that every student could get logged on. There's a tech guy who's at school all the time, and he has saved my life multiple times with these. And all the students, now that they're in person, have computers at school as well, because a lot of the assignments are virtual so that all the kids can do them. And so whenever there's a broken computer or a charger or something, I can just email and be like, I need 2 chargers and a computer, please. The
tech people right now are just the go-to people.
Yeah.
I feel so every time I email him, I'm like, I'm sorry in advance, but I need this, this, and this, because he's just getting email after email after email. They've had to bring more people in to help him with repairs and stuff.
And Michelle, Lusher, what's their process?
The same setup of Lake Forest. They made sure that every family who needed a Chromebook was able to get a Chromebook. And the same thing with the hotspots. We only had a certain amount, so it was really based on need. If you didn't need it, then they were asking you to not ask for it, so that those hotspots could go for the families who really did need it. So every child who needed a computer was able to come and pick one up and a case and get a hotspot in order to give the kids what they need, which is, what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing too, considering I feel like in kindergarten, when my daughter's in kindergarten, it was just iPad use, right? But now they're really learning some tech skills, the kids, right? I mean, at an earlier age.
Oh yeah.
So impressed with especially this year, what they've learned. I mean, they like can type now. They'll like ask me, type out questions in the chat, or, like, I'm very impressed, and they know how to navigate the internet. They know how to navigate a computer. I mean, and that's really because of everything that's going on this year. So that's why
they can get into breakout rooms and out of breakout rooms. My mind was blown.
I never even taught them how to do it. They just like did it. The breakout rooms. I was so impressed. They know what to click. Like they just know how to do it.
In a second, you're going to see a little thing pop up and they're like, I see it. Bye. And I'm like, okay, great. That's awesome. And then, they went and worked with the other teacher in the breakout room, and then they came back in like, that was fun. See you tomorrow. Bye. They're not as stressed, or there's so much joy that I get from seeing their comfort level and seeing their excitement and how they just go with the flow. Yeah. That's one of the blessings with education. Let's not talk about the workload. The blessings are they're happy, and to see the kids happy is refreshing.
It looks like we have a question here from Professor Brooke. Professor Grant, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. So, Ms. Williamson, you talked about social emotional learning strategies that you like to use. And Ms. Garrard, you talked about movement strategies that you like to use since the kids are virtual all day. So I was thinking it would be cool if each of you could share one of those strategies, just in case one of our students are left with, you know, we said always have something in your toolbox. Maybe they can pull out a cool SEL strategy or movement strategy.
Okay. Sophie, you want to go?
I can go. Let's see. Well, one SEL strategy I really like is just I feel like most kindergarten classrooms do this, but just having a morning meeting as a class every morning. I ask them like a silly like, would you rather question, or some days it's less silly and more about, you know, school or their lives, and just giving them the opportunity to share and ask each other questions about what they shared. They really enjoy that. I pick popsicle sticks to see who gets to share, and they're always like, please pick me, please pick me. So they love to share with each other. And then one movement strategy that I've been using a lot recently that I love is wiggle cards, which is something that was a part of the curriculum that we use. And it's like a one-time lesson, but I do it all the time now because the kids love it so much, is putting action words on a card that has something that they're working on. So my kids have been working on blends recently. And so writing the word like clap on a card, or jump, because those have consonant blends in them, and then putting them up on the screen, and the kids have to read the word and then act out the word, the wiggle card. And they have a lot of fun with that. And also, and then the kind of the opposite of that, we'll play a game where I put a word on my head and they read it off my head, and then they start acting it out, and I have to guess what it is. And they really love that. Just anything like that's a game that they can be creative with and get their bodies moving, they love.
And I'll share my top 2 favorite social emotional strategies. Number 1, breathing strategies. When you teach the kids the value of deep breathing and what it truly does for their bodies and their minds, and model it for them, it's amazing how quickly they grasp onto it. I love teaching it to the kids, sharing the value and the impact with the parents. It definitely helps in building a relationship with the parents. In kindergarten, you teach the kids all day, but you are really walking this year alongside with 20-something parents. So the closer and the stronger your relationships are with the parents, the better your year will go. It's great to see the kids use those strategies, you know, in the mix of it. You know, one of my little girls, you know, came to me at recess and said, I'm scared I can't cross the monkey bars. What breathing strategy should I use? That's what she told me today. I'm like, it's so powerful that they grasp it, they understand it. I'm like, do butterfly breathing. That's the one we did this morning in community circle. So simple, so cheap. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. So easy, you know, 10 seconds. It's breathing strategies for sure. And my second favorite is a safe place. I'm a huge advocate for conscious discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. I learned about it 12 years ago, transformed my way of teaching in the classroom. Listen to her on YouTube, get her book. She's truly fascinating and amazing. And having a safe place in the classroom. Like Sophie said, if you're alone and you've got a kid having a meltdown or in hysterics crying, you still have 20-something kids that you're responsible for. To train the kids how to appropriately use a safe place meets the needs of their social and emotional requirements. It also allows you to continue learning going on for the other kids. And it builds your confidence as an educator. At any moment, your principal is going to walk in and want to see learning. And if you've got a child crying, you don't want to fuss at them and say, stop crying, stop crying. You want to allow them to feel the feelings that they're having, work through it, and still continue teaching. So to train your children how to use that safe place appropriately, it values their feelings and emotions, equips you as a teacher. You can still keep the other 20-something going. And then when that child has calmed and collected themselves, then you can work through that problem and figure out what happened and problem solve together. So deep breathing and a safe place.
Yeah. That's something I learned from Michelle. I have a safe place in my classroom now, and it's like, it saves me sometimes. I'm like, sit in a safe place until you're ready to talk about this. And then they calm down, and then it's like nothing ever happened. I mean, they really love that special alone time to kind of work through everything.
Well, we have a question from Tamika. Tamika, would you like to ask your question? You have a couple questions.
Hi, one of my questions was like, how effective has it been getting kids to turn in like assignments?
It's definitely a challenge. I mean, some of my kids know how to turn in assignments by themselves, and that's really helpful. But when students have parents who are not turning in their assignments, or are not even like doing the assignment, or not like showing them what the assignment is. Like, for example, if we have homework and a parent isn't reading the child the instructions for the homework, they're not going to be able to do it. So that has been a challenge. But just like we've talked about, keeping in constant communication with the parents. I mean, if I notice that there's a certain child who hasn't turned in an assignment in a while, or they have a lot of missing assignments, I'll contact the parent and just ask, I won't say like, hi, turn in these assignments. I'll say, are you missing this assignment? Did you lose it? I remember I saw Sally working on the assignment. So, if you lost it, that's fine. Just click the mark as turned in button, or just being understanding with them, but keeping in constant communication. And I post a lot of reminders. I'll say, make sure all of your work is turned in by Sunday. You can find all the work from this week under this heading on Google Classroom. And then sending, not just posting on Google Classroom, but sending reminders to the parent emails, because they don't always check Google Classroom, but they do check their own email. So I'll say, I'll send an email reminder saying, check out the stream on Google Classroom for a reminder about work. Michelle, do you have any other?
Well, we just ran it a little bit differently. Our kids didn't have to turn in assignments the way that it sounds like yours did. Ours was mostly done in small group settings, small group sessions, and one-on-one sessions. We did have work that was turned in, but the mindset that we took this year was to always assume best, and to know that everybody has their own set of struggles at home and their own situations. And if a child didn't turn it in, but was participating in every community circle, was a part of every one-on-one session, was always there and engaged, but didn't turn the work in, and then could pass all the oral assessments, we didn't hold that against them. Of course, we reached out. We have an ongoing communication with the parents, but if they didn't turn in an assignment, it wasn't held against them.
Tamika, you have a second question here, right?
The second question just was like, one strategy or app you use to virtually engage your students.
That's a great one.
Well, I guess I'll go really quick. Sophie's on the computer all day with her kids. Mine are short bursts. Are you online with your kids all day, Tamika?
No, I actually teach 2 virtual classes, and we have like 3 in-person classes.
I mean, for me, I can say I don't do a lot, because my sessions with the kids are max 20 minutes at a time. So it's exhausting for me, because it's like, super energetic, a lot of hand motions, a lot of whiteboards and markers to keep them engaged. They're not just sitting and listening. And they feed off of my energy level. If I'm super excited and engaged with them, then they do the same too. But Sophie might have some more apps or.
Yeah. Sorry, what age are your students?
So I teach 5th grade. So somewhere like between 10, we have some that's 11.
Yeah. So we do a lot of Go Noodle, and I'll just search, I'll go onto YouTube and I'll just search whatever we're learning about. So say we're learning about, animals. I'll search some sort of animal movement, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll do movements involving what we're learning about. I know fifth graders aren't super like hype on that kind of stuff all the time, but we'll do like workouts a lot from YouTube videos, different apps that they enjoy. I've been using WordWall a lot, which is learning games. I don't know if you've heard of that. They love WordWall, and they have like everything, a game for everything that you could imagine on WordWall. They really enjoy, it's like I use so many different websites, it's like they're jumbling in my mind. They enjoy, we use a lot of like virtual manipulatives. So I have like my virtual classroom, and I have like a little shelf of manipulatives, and they can click on any tool like Unifix cubes and counters, and they can do all of that on the computer. Most of those come from didax.com, D-I-D-A-X. And then just, yeah, lots of different learning games. I just am constantly researching different things to make it more fun, especially like as early finisher activities. When we're working on something as a class, I always have my students who are finishing everything really early. And so I'm finding different games and websites that they can go to while they are waiting for us to move on to the next thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamika, for your question. So we are now at 6 o'clock, and we've gotten a great history of your experience in the classrooms. I appreciate both of you for taking the time to speak with us, and thanks to the participants for joining us. This presentation is recorded, so it will be shared and sent out to all of those who registered. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good evening. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.